Hi everybody and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'm going to be showing you how I made this cat house with leftover materials from this garden room that I made on the channel a few months ago. So without further ado, let's get started. And as you can see, I'm just on the chop saw cutting a few timbers here, and these are going to be the timbers that are going to be used to construct the base frame for the cat's house. And I will say that this is actually very similar to the construction methods used on the garden room itself. So I'm going to be creating frames. These are going to be covered in OSB. Inside the frames, we're going to be adding insulation, and then over the top of the OSB, we're going to be putting cladding. So pretty much exactly the same process. And I'm using as much waste materials as I can here. So this insulation, as you can see, is all offcuts. And I'm just going to cram this into the floor. And also the OSB that I'm using, that is all leftover offcuts that I had from the garden room as well. So basically just trying to get rid of all the waste that I had on the deck, really. This was the main purpose for building this, other than the fact that I wanted to keep the cats warm in winter, obviously. Winter was on the way at this point, and I wanted to get it, you know, a nice little area for them to go in if they were out at night. Okay, so once the floor is finished, I'm going on to the back frame, which is exactly the same process as the floor frame. It's just a rectangular frame with a divider in the middle. And then the little side frames here that you can see me building, which are essentially just little squares. They're just going to sit on there, nail into the bottom, and we're just going to screw this into the back frame, and then exactly the same on the other side. So really nothing complicated at this point. It's just a case of building little frames and fixing them together, really. So I've moved back a little bit here, so we've got a bit of a better view now. And I'm just going to make the front frame, which is slightly different because we have to account for the holes for the cat flaps. So this is slightly different in that we're not just going to have one divider in the middle, we're going to have several, so we can create that opening. And I just worked this out by measuring the cat flap. Nothing overly complicated here. I just measured the width, and that's what I allowed for in order to fit that. You can see I'm fixing a couple of pieces of wood to the bottom. That was just to get the nice height for the cats to walk through, and then a little piece at the top of the opening there, which is just going to form the entire opening now. Okay, so once that's fixed together, we can move on to covering the entire frame with OSB. And this is going to help to solid the frame up. It's going to give it an extra weatherproofing. It's going to give it extra insulation. It's going to help me square the frame up as well. And it's nothing complicated. Again, I'm using offcuts, so I am having to patch it together. If you're using brand new sheets of OSB, you can obviously just cut them to size. So here on the front, I'm just going to do a strip at the bottom, strip at the top, and then I've just got these three little infill bits to finish it off. And there we go. So as you can see, that's what it looks like now, all covered in OSB, and you can see that I've added some insulation inside. So I think that looks nice. It's going to be nice and cozy in there for the cats. And then I'm just going to cover that with this 6mm ply. I didn't want to have anything too thick on the inside because it's limited on space, but that's cheap, nice, easy to work with, thin plywood there. And as you can see, I think it looks quite good. It looks alright, that. Okay, so once that's done, I'm going to move on to the roof. So again, a simple frame. This is going to be made in the same way as the walls and the floor. And the only difference really here is it's just a little bit bigger. It's going to be around 50mm larger on either side, just to overhang the building itself. Again, this is very similar to the way the garden room was built. It has that overhang all the way around. Okay, so once I've made the frame, I'm going to fix this OSB onto the top, and then I'm going to flip it over and start adding a little bit of insulation in. This is another thing that I actually bought. I bought one sheet of 25mm insulation, and the reason for that is I just ran out of the little offcuts. I knew I wasn't going to have enough, so I bought just one sheet along with my pieces of 2x2. And here we go. I'm on the bottom here of the roof. I'm just going to add the 6mm ply, and I have this felt that I'm going to add to the roof. And this is again another leftover material that I actually used on the log store that I built last year, or maybe the year before. So this is quite simple. Just add some felt adhesive onto the top of the roof, onto the OSB there, and I'm just going to press that down and add some staples around the edges, and then fold everything over onto the bottom edge and just staple that down in place. So nothing complicated, very simple again. Just a case of folding it over, stapling it in place, and then when that adhesive goes off on the top and the sides, that's really going to hold it in place as well. Okay, so one last job to do here on the roof. I'm just going to add some timber battens onto the bottom. These are just going to help it slot into the opening on the cat house itself. So you'll see what I mean in a second. I'm just going to add these on. Okay, so we have 2 pieces here. I'm just going to add a bit of adhesive onto the back of them, stick them on there and just pin them in place. So that adhesive is going to go off and it's going to set really hard. And then I'm just going to do the same here with these 2, and that's just going to allow this to slot into that hole there at the top. Okay, so once I've finished with that, I'm going to move on to the cladding. And again, this is all leftover cladding. It's all offcuts. It's all tiny bits that were left over. And to be fair, I didn't have many bits that did sort of the full height. So any full height ones I put on the side, and then the front, because I wouldn't have had enough to do full height pieces all over the front, so I ended up using kind of a staggered effect here. As you can see, one long one to the bottom, little one to the top, long one from the top, little one at the bottom, and just kind of staggered the joints that way. This was probably the hardest bit of the job, to be honest, because I had to cut around the openings. I mean, it wasn't particularly hard. I'm just saying that it was one of the more tricky bits. Most of the job was actually really easy. Okay, so you can see here I'm just planing them up, and I'm basically just taking the face off them and then giving them a little sand with the orbital sander. Okay, so once that's done, you can see it's looking pretty nice. And then we can get on to putting the oil on. So you can actually see the garden room in the background. They've got a very similar kind of look to them. Obviously the cladding's there, the finish is going to be the same. We have the anthracite grey doors on the garden room and the fascia and soffit, and then we also have the anthracite grey cat flaps, which we're going to put the front covers on in a minute, so you'll actually see that a bit better now. But yeah, I think they've got kind of a very similar look and feel, and that was kind of what I was hoping. And as you can see, the cats really love this. They took a little bit of persuading to get in there, but I put a little bit of catnip in, some treats in there, and they were soon through the doors once they'd figured it out. So Percy's just coming out now. He's going to go have a little wander. Florence took a little bit more convincing. She just lounging about in the sun, but after a little persuasion, she went in as well. And yeah, the cats love it. The cats really love the room. So listen, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Obviously, if you have any questions about this little build that I did, please put them in the comments below. And in the meantime, I will see you in the next video. All right, see you later.